spent the past couple months hooking up a air compressor on my truck. I've been wanting to do this for a while since I had my last truck, but it had factory air conditioning and I wasn't willing to give that up. So when I got a new truck and it had a spot to mount an air conditioning pump, but I didn't actually have factory AC, I decided that I know exactly what's going there. And so I found on eBay for $35 I got a factory GM pump and just had to replace the drive belt with one that was made for a truck with air conditioning. And then I simply tapped out the output with a 1/4 inch pipe thread. And this was going to be 3/8 pipe thread, but ended up being just a little bit too big, so I JB welded it in. Got my intake filter and then a plug so I can add oil to it. And then over here I have a filter to separate out any moisture and dirt and oil. That's probably going to get replaced with a bigger one at some point. That one doesn't really work that great. I still get quite a bit of oil in the system. And then it splits out to, I got a switch which turns on at 90 pounds and shuts off at 120 psi. Here I've got a safety valve, which if I recall correctly it pops off at 140 psi, and then just a quick connect with right here I got a wire that runs down underneath the truck to a 3-gallon tank here, and then it also runs to a quick connect out here, which right now it's got my shop compressor hooked into it because I was working on something and didn't want to have to keep starting the truck to pump it up, so I was just pumping it up with the shop compressor. And then I also have a set of Firestone Air Bags in here, which run off. The airbags run off the leveling valve right here, which works by your air input here, and then my muffler's exhaust pipes are in the way, so it's kind of hard to see. Just get this lever, which hooks to the axle with a linkage. As you add more pressure, more weight in the truck, it lifts this valve up, lifts this lever up, and opens up the valve, which adds more air to the airbags. And as you take weight out of the truck, it pulls the valve down, which exhausts air out of the bags right here. And I found that it does cycle some. My trip to work's and back's about 26 miles, and it will usually cycle at least the compressor once in that trip, just from going over bumps and just moving up and down and little puffs of air going in and out of the bags, which isn't a huge deal. I just got to make sure I check my oil a little more often where it runs. At least one. Forgot. Here I have on the dash, this is my switch to turn the airbags on and off, the air compressor on and off, and I also have this button here, which I'm not going to push right now because it's about midnight and I don't want to bother the neighbors. But what that switch does, come back out here to the manifold, and there's this extra valve I have that goes to another tank. This is just a small 1-gallon tank, and a solenoid valve, which is what that button controls, and that goes to out underneath the hood here. I don't know how well you can see it, but inside there I have a 4 Trumpet air horn. The reason I have the tank and the bigger air line go into it is when I first hooked it up, it came with this solenoid, which is just a 1/8 inch input and a 1/4 inch output, and it just wasn't getting enough airflow to the horns to make them as loud as I wanted to be. So I put its own tank in to give it a dedicated volume. There's a flow valve so that the air in this tank stays in this tank unless it's going to the horn. And then a 3/8 inch solenoid, which seems to let a lot more airflow through. And then another neat thing about this is over here See this red wire? This is for the horn. And if I can remember where it is, right there, there's a little box that some wires hook into. And what that does is, if I can find it in my pocket, that's a receiver for this remote. I got this on eBay. I paid about $7 for it, I think. It's a button, and what that does is wirelessly runs the horn. So I'm pretty happy with it. Overall, I don't even want to think about how much I got into it. I know when I was keeping track, by the time I got the compressor and all my fittings, and I used 3/8 brake line for the plumbing it back to the tank and the fitting in the back and the tank, all that was about $200 if I remember right. And then the airbags were $300, the leveling valves $150. Then I get a few other things like this tank, the horn, which was $40 on eBay, the solenoid, the hose, which I got at Tractor Supply. That's just a 1/2-inch PVC type hose, 50-foot length for $10, and I use the rest of it here and just put another fitting on to hook into my to use with the compressor in the shop. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it overall. I was hoping it would cycle a little bit less than it does, but like I said, I'll just make sure I get oil into it. I thought about doing a recirculator, like I've seen some people do, from the filter back into the pump, but I don't want to risk having water get into the pump by doing that, because this will also separate out any water. But yeah, that's it. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm not real knowledgeable. I'm just a home mechanic. But I did some reading around, looking to see what people did, and come up with this on my own. Oh, another thing I'll point out is the way I mounted this. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but there's another port in the back. And what I did is I just took a piece of metal, like scrap sheet metal, and welded it to a plug. And then just threaded the plug into the back here, and just put some self-tapping screws to mount it to the firewall. This was like, I think I got on eBay for like $12. And the powder blue color wouldn't be my first choice, but it's what I could find at a decent price. And also, and the other thing I forgot is this directional valve, so that after the compressor fills the system with air, the air bleeds out through the, probably through the intake. I'm not sure where it bleeds out, but the idea is it doesn't keep pressure against the compressor all the time, so it's not working against itself to start up. It makes it a lot easier for it to start. And then I bought some compressor oil at Tractor Supply that I've been using to oil the compressor. I don't really know how much it needs. I know when I first got it hooked up, I put way too much in, and it just sprayed oil everywhere. At the time, I put it's actually synthetic motor oil, which I was going to try, and I dumped in maybe 1/3 of a quart, and that was way too much because it just kept pumping out, and it actually broke the filter. The element in the filter broke and fell down into the bottom of the bowl. So what I did to fix that was I just took a piece of 3/4-inch pipe and set it in the bottom, cut a little knot so the oil and stuff could flow around it as it needed to, and cut it to the right length and set that up in there so that it holds the filter up in where it needs to be. Probably not the best design, and another part of the reason I'm going to end up replacing it as soon as my new filter shows up. But yeah, as I was saying, if you like what you see, comment, like, subscribe. Feel free to ask questions. I may not be the best to answer it, but I'll do the best I can. Thanks for watching.